On the evening of September 2nd, 1883, Stratford, Connecticut, Rose Ambler was visiting at her fiancé's father's house with her fiancé William Lewis, as they were to marry on Thanksgiving Day. After the wedding, they planned to move a new house that Lewis had under construction. Around 9:30 p.m., Rose started walking back to her parents' home, which was about a mile and a half away. Her fiancé, most called him Will, walked her as far as the Ravenstream Bridge. Will stated Rose declined having him walk her all the way home as she knew he had to be up early next morning, which was peddling vegetables. That night, a man by the name of Preston Hodges, who incidentally lived near the bridge, stated that he was awakened by a violent thunderstorm, and then around 11 p.m. he heard horrible scream, which at the time he attributed to an owl or some other animal. The following morning, Rose Ambler's body was found beaten and stabbed as she lay near a wall in a meadow between the bridge and Mr. Preston Hodges' house, who had heard the scream. Upon examination of Miss Ambler's being, it was thought that she had been assaulted in a carnal way. As she wasn't carrying any money, assault seemed to be the only motive available. The first suspect was a man named Boston White, a young black man with a bad reputation in Stratford. A mob went to his house and demanded from his mother to see his clothes to see if there was any blood on them. No blood was found, and he had an alibi of being at stables several miles away, which was confirmed by the stable owner. To the chagrin of some, Boston White was eliminated as a suspect. Later, after autopsy, it was revealed that she had not been raped, which in turn forced investigators to look at her complicated personal life for a motive. When she was 18 years old, she was engaged to a sailor who went out to sea and stayed out at sea much longer than anticipated. Unable to wait, she married Norman Ambler, who was a farmer. Rose and Norman divorced several months later, with some speculation that Norman was beating her. It later came to light that Rose was cheating on him with his cousin and business partner, also named William Lewis, but this William Lewis was living in the same house as Rose and Norman. In any event, when Norman found out about this affair, he sent William Lewis away, which led to a relationship of distemper between Rose and Norman. He probably beat her, and a divorce was filed. Lewis was described as an ideal Connecticut countryman, with oiled hair, bushy blonde whiskers, and blue flannel clothes. It was also known that he was the jealous type, as was Norman Ambler, who was bitter over the loss of his wife to Lewis. The two men reportedly met shortly before the murder of Rose, with Ambler telling Lewis, "You will never marry this woman. Either you or she shall die first." On September 4th, 1883, a day after Rose's body was found, Deputy Coroner J.A. Joyce began a closed-door inquest to investigate the murder of Rose Ambler. A reward of $1,000 was offered for information, or approximately $34,000 in 2025 buying power. In this inquest, Norman Ambler was their first suspect, and a witness testified seeing him in town that day. His threats against Rose and Lewis were well known. However, a man by the name of Henry Hatch testified that Norman had, and was, living with him 40 miles away, and that Ambler had sleeping at his home on the night of the murder. And then, they brought back Boston White to testify, this time to be asked about a white friend of his named Michael Heslin. There were 3 deep scratches on Rose's neck, and Heslin was known to be missing a finger. Then there was an unnamed, unidentified man who had been staying at a hotel in Stratford, who had complaints from ladies that he was harassing them. Though detectives initially ruled out Lewis as a suspect, he was quickly heading to the top of the list. Bloodstains were found on the laprobe in Lewis's carriage. Some fibers found on Rose's clothing matched fibers from the laprobe. It was thought that Lewis had murdered her in his barn and then wrapped her up in the laprobe before dropping it by the wall. Witnesses testified they heard Lewis and Rose quarreling, but Lewis had a solid alibi. The inquest went on until September 29th with no conclusion. There was not enough evidence to charge anyone with murder, though it was stated that the jurors think suspicion points toward William Lewis. No one was ever charged, and the case remains unsolved.